Welcome back everybody to part 4 of our Starfox style rail shooter series in Unity. We've got our ship moving, bow rolling, boosting and braking. Now it's time to add the ability to somersault. So, when you're ready, grab your rumble packs. Let's crack on. So, how are we going to somersault? We're going to use very similar methods as to how we did the bow rolling. If you remember, for the bow roll, we take the current rotation of the ship and rotate it along Z 360 degrees, either left or right, based on the input. We're going to use those same methods, but this time we're going to adjust the rotation on the X-axis. As the ship is always moving forward, as we rotate, we're going to get a nice forward, then back returning loop. So that's what we're going to do. Let's head into the player controller script. For the variables, we need to add only one more line, and that'll be a serialized bool, somersault, to help control when we can or can't somersault, similar to action active. Speaking of the action slider, let's add a little bit of cleanup and give full control as to whether action active is true or false to our action slider. So we already have it set that if it's greater or equal to 0.99, then the action is true, we can boost. So underneath, just add else. If it's not, if it's less, then the action active will be false. Therefore, we have to wait for it to cool down to boost and additionally somersault again. Next, let's go all the way down to the bottom and let's enable our coroutine somersault by deleting the bookends there, set it active. It's very similar, if not identical, to how the bow roll works. We have a float duration for how long we want it to last. So I enumerator somersault, in the brackets, a float duration. And very familiar, we want to have that float start rotation, that'll equal the transform.local Euler angles on X this time. We want a float for end rotation, that'll equal the start rotation plus 360F for 360 degrees, and a float T for time, that'll equal 0.0F. And once we initiate the somersault, we want to set the somersault bool as true. This is what we're going to use to help keep controls clean, so we can't input a boost or brake as we're performing a somersault. We will still be able to bow roll though, because it looks quite cool. Then we're going to have a while loop. So while time is less than the duration. Ship emitters.emit boost for added effect. T, time, plus equals time.delta time. We then want to get the float, the X rotation. We'll call it, that'll equal mathf.lerp. Then we're going to interpolate between, again, that start rotation towards the end rotation over the duration, which is time divided by duration, to the value of 360 degrees. Then we want to set the transform.local Euler angle to equal a new vector 3. We're going to go minus on the X rotation. We want to somersault forward and backwards. And then 0 on Y and Z. So minus on the X rotation. Then we want the hood manager.action cooling to be false, because when we boost, it is going to deplete our boost meter. Then at the end, yield return null. Once we've finished performing the somersault and we are back to the default normal position, then ship emitters.emit normal, the hood manager.action cooling equals true, and the somersault equals false. And that is everything we need for the somersault coroutine. Now, let's go back into our inputs, and below our speed inputs, at the bottom, let's punch in for the somersault, if input.getKeyDown keycode S, and input.getKeyDown keycode O, and action is active, that's going to initiate the boost. So what we're doing here is we're not inputting one button, we're going to input two buttons at the same time. In Starfox, if you boost and pull back, you perform a somersault. So we're going to emulate the same. So if we hit S or down and O boost at the same time, we'll initiate the somersault. So inside, we want to start the coroutine, somersault, and I've added a value here for the duration of 2.5, but feel free to play around with this if you like, even create a public float for it if you need to. And we want these ship emitters to emit the boost to give us a nice boosting immediate effect. We also want to add a little bit more to our speed inputs as well to make sure that we're not somersaulting in order to boost and brake, But before we do, let's just slide a little bit down to the system's normal. As the slider is going to control action active, we can go ahead and delete action active is false. Then let's go back to the speed input. First, let's start with when we release the boost or brake key. We're going to add at the end here, within the bracket, and is not somersaulting. So just go ahead and add those at the end there like so. That's going to keep it nice and clean. So now when we release it and the value is less than or equal to 0 and we're not somersaulting, then return systems back to normal. Now, what about when we do input the boost and brake? What we're going to do is let's just delete action active for now. And in its place, we're going to say if input.getKeyDown keycode 0 for boost, and we are not inputting S, and action active is true, and we're not somersaulting, then we can commit the boost. And we're going to do the exact same below for braking, except this time it's going to be for the corresponding input. So, and we're not inputting S again, plus action active, plus not somersaulting. So that's going to help us keep things nice and clean so we can't boost and brake out of a somersault and vice versa. In addition, for extra cleanup and control, let's go all the way back to the top to our handle tilting. While we're moving, we tilt on the Z and X, but when we somersault, that can get a little bit awkward. So all we're going to do is replace this with an if statement that says if we're not somersaulting, then we can tilt on Z and X while we move, because that can conflict with the local Euler angles in the somersault. So that's going to help keep that nice and tidy. And finally, if we go back to the top there for update, we want the vertical input. We don't want to be able to control our vertical position, so we're going to limit that to when we're not somersaulting. So again, we're going to replace this with an if statement that says if we're not somersaulting, then we can control the vertical axis of the ship, but we will be able to move horizontally while we're barrel rolling or somersaulting in order to avoid enemies and obstacles. And that is it for the somersault. Let's go back into Unity and test this out. Now, when the boost meter is full and we hit down and boost at the same time, we perform a nice looping somersault. Feel free to play around with some of the values today, get this working as you desire for your project. And thank you for watching. We appreciate every single one of you for joining us and learning game dev in Unity. It's a fun project from a classic game. And in the next video, we're going to be looking at how to set up our weapons and get this thing shooting. So please do look forward to that. Thank you all once again, guys. Take care, and I'll see you soon.